Welcome back to the Flying with the Flock podcast, the best place to get all of your Eagles and other NFL related news. I'm your host, Matt, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, as we creep closer to the start of the NFL season. We take a look at some of the Eagles training camp injuries that keep on piling up, some trades that the Eagles have made over the past week, continue our series of hold-ins and Big Trouble in Big D, while also analyzing different pieces of news in the NFL and also looking at different record predictions. But before we jump into all of that, if y'all could leave a like and subscribe down below, that would be much appreciated. With all your support, it means a lot, and it does not go unnoticed by me. So, without a further ado, let's jump right into it. Alright, so the big thing that I wanted to talk with about the Eagles today was the John Metchie III trade that happened Sunday, it might have been. I think it was Sunday. But what does this mean for the team overall? Now, you have a lot of conspiracy theorists, NFL conspiracy theorists, at the very least, online, saying that this is only like a domino in like a larger like trade package that Howie Roseman is building up and he's about to shoot out any day now. But really, I don't think it's that deep, and it has a kind of a different meaning for the team. Other people have said maybe this is for more depth because AJ Brown has that hamstring. And though you could be right, the Eagles go for more depth at every single position anyway. So, what does it really mean? Well, it majorly affects the depth chart and who's going to make this 53-man roster. Though with an injury to Johnny Wilson, another spot did open up, allowing wide receiver Darius Cooper to run with the first teamers alongside John Metchie and Jahad Dotson. Both Darius Cooper and John Metchie now have a larger chance of making it onto the 53-man roster because of this. So it affects the team's depth in the sense that now Johnny Wilson has gone down with an ankle injury, which we will get into in a little bit here. We have no sense of when he is coming back. And with the depth behind Darius Cooper not looking overly bright, and with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown both being out of training camp for at least a couple of days, this allows Hurts to have starter quality wide receivers to work with during training camp so he can work on different aspects of his game while on top of adding more depth to this wide receiver room, which could help in the long term. John Metchie was a teammate with Devontae Smith down in Alabama. Both seem to have a close connection because when John Metchie got diagnosed with leukemia, I believe back in 2022, I want to say, Devontae Smith outwardly showed his support through many different ways for his former teammate, now current teammate. So I'm not entirely surprised that the Eagles look to pair up another college duo again. Similar to how they paired up two best friends in Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, two former teammates in Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith, now two teammates in Devontae Smith and John Metchie, both of which I believe have a solid chance of getting some, well, obviously Devontae Smith, but I feel like John Metchie has a solid chance on getting a lot of starter reps, maybe coming in as wide receiver number 4 since Johnny Wilson is now out for the foreseeable future at the very least. I mean, I don't have any updates as of recording this morning, and I don't believe practice has started yet, so we don't know who is exactly out there right now. But overall, adding depth for the long run is not a bad idea. And no, this doesn't mean that Howie isn't up to something or still shopping around. He's always shopping around, looking at who's for sale, and so on and so forth. But to me, this is more of a depth insurance piece that Howie brought in that he saw could have a lot of potential. I mean, he's an amazing route runner. He just has been below substandard in putting in the stats department, which doesn't mean everything at the end of the day. I'd rather have a clutch wide receiver who can make any catch possible, but only has to make like 2 to 3 catches a game, than like a guy who makes 15 catches a game, runs for almost 200 yards a game, but drops the most important passes, and the quarterback doesn't really trust them that much when push comes to shove. So overall, I do feel like that this is a fairly smart move to build up the depth behind our wide receivers, and really doesn't have any grand scheme going on behind the scenes. And we honestly we flipped our 5th and 6th round picks back to each other, us and the Texans. So at the end of the day, no damage was done, and we gave them C.J. Gardner-Johnson for Kenyon Green and John Mechie. So I'm not going to complain here. Like I said earlier, the injury bug rolls into Philly again. I'll just go through it quick here. Some of these you guys already know, some of them that you don't. Some of these guys are starters, some of them are not. A.J. Brown, out, has a hamstring. Landon Dickerson, his knee, obviously. Jordan Mailata, concussion. Tanner McKee, finger. Devontae Smith, groin. Tariq Castro-Fields, hamstring. Lewis Cine, groin. Brandon Johnson, groin. And now we get to 2 that happened just yesterday during practice. During one-on-ones against tight end. Ooh, I'm forgetting his name. It was like our depth tight end. We're talking like a guy battling for a roster spot. Was going up against Andrew Mabuka in one-on-ones. And after the drill, Andrew Mabuka was seen grabbing his hamstring and walking off the field towards the blue medical tent, and eventually heading back into the facilities to never be seen for the rest of the day. So it seems like Andrew Mabuka now has a hamstring that he's going to most likely be battling with, and this is coming off of gaining starting reps all day yesterday with the first team defense. So now that he's out, Sidney Brown's going to have a larger shot at the starting safety, which we'll get into in a second. Like we also mentioned earlier, Johnny Wilson went down. We're not sure with what. I'm going to assume, based off of how it was described, it was an ankle injury. He got rolled up on practice and couldn't put any weight on his foot. He had to be carted off the training field. So he got rolled up on by, I feel like it was an offensive lineman. I think it was Brett Toth, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Johnny Wilson is now out, and I have a feeling that this one's going to be a little bit more serious. He could be out possibly for the rest of the season, if not until deep into the season. So that opens up a spot for Darius Cooper to slide right in, who's honestly earned a 53-man roster spot, being an undrafted free agent, I'm pretty sure, and coming into the Eagles training camp and lighting it up. I do feel like with this, it allows us to keep both Johnny Wilson, a wide receiver that they want to keep, and Darius Cooper, a wide receiver that has earned a starting or at least a 53-man roster spot, while also now bringing in John Mechie for a more of a veteran experience. You pay him like $1 million for the year, and you get a solid route runner as well. So, yeah. And there's only one limited person, that being Dallas Goedert with a groin injury. But yeah. So let's get into some of the starting roster spots. So we have let's see here. So Sidney Brown and Andrew Mabuka are still going at it. I feel like if Andrew Mabuka was to stay healthy and play this entire week with the first team and play through the preseason game, there would be a high chance that he would be your week 1 starter at the safety position. But now that he's down with a hamstring, which could take a week or two to get back to full form, Sidney Brown has his best shot here at getting the first team safety spot. He's still going to have to play at a high level throughout training camp and throughout the preseason games and then into week 1. But Sidney Brown now has his best shot. A few weeks ago, Andrew Mabuka was injured. He still had a good shot, but he didn't wow anybody. He played solid. Now he really has a shot to wow Vic Fangio and ultimately lock up this starting safety spot for at least week 1, if not the first few weeks, while Andrew Mabuka recovers. So, yeah, that is slightly concerning. I really wish Andrew Mabuka was able to stay healthy, but it seems like he'll be able to take some time and really study a little bit more of the game as well under Vic Fangio's system. We do kind of have an update of which way they're leaning for the QB3 spot. So, with Tanner McKee being out, there was obviously one, either DTR or Kyle McCord were going to take the second team reps, and that guy is most likely going to be your QB3, and that man was the one that I predicted. Kyle McCord ultimately got the starting nod with the second team offense. So, yeah, it seems like Kevin Petula, Nick Sirianni are both leaning towards having Kyle McCord as their third quarterback on the roster, while probably putting DTR on the practice squad as well. So, yeah, that battle's basically done. That one's kind of decided at this point. And another battle that's kind of been decided for the edge rusher 3 spot, a guy that's going to come in and rotate with Jalen Hunt, has most likely been won by Azeez Ojulari. Azeez has seemed to pop out over the past week, especially to Vic Fangio, which is fairly important. I do feel like Azeez Ojulari has ultimately probably earned it, though I wouldn't be surprised. Obviously, Josh Uche is making the team. This is not like an end-all, be-all for like who's going to make the team, who's not going to make the team, similar to the last battle that we just talked about. But Josh Uche may see less of a less time on the field than we thought, and maybe he rotates in on the other side when Azeez Ojulari comes in. But yeah, it seems like Azeez has kind of locked up this edge rusher 3 spot, at least in the eyes of Vic Fangio. And at the end of the day, that's really all that matters when it comes to this Eagles defense. Alright, so that's all this Eagles news that I have coming out of training camp, which is coming to a close here relatively soon, especially with the first preseason game coming up. So it has been nice going camping with y'all over the past month or so. So, yeah, I want to thank you guys for listening in for that segment. And obviously I will continue to update you over the practices that they have leading up to week 1. But it won't be my main focus as it has been over the past few weeks. Some news from around the league. Daniel Jones gets the nod at QB1 for the Colts. So, yeah, it seems like Shane Steichen saw what he preferred in a quarterback in Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. Now, Daniel Jones has been more accurate with his passes compared to Anthony Richardson. So, I do feel like for Shane Steichen's system, you have to have more of an accurate quarterback. It's not just rail shots down the line, deep passes, so on and so forth. It's a lot of RPO, short reads, and hand it off to your running back or keep it with the quarterback and run it himself. So although Anthony Richardson could pull off that part of the system, it seems like his accuracy and his what he needs for being QB1 quality is not quite there yet. So what does this mean for Anthony Richardson? To me, what it means is if Daniel Jones slips up, Anthony Richardson will be waiting in the wings to come in and play. I've never been that high of a fan on Anthony Richardson in general anyway. I felt like pick 4 back in, 2023 was way too high of expectations on him. And ultimately, it kind of has been proven right. I wouldn't be surprised if there are 2 scenarios that happens. One, if Danny Dimes succeeds, he signs a longer contract with the Colts, and he ultimately becomes a starter for the next few years. And then the team trades Anthony Richardson to a quarterback-needy team, or even a team that could have him as a backup quarterback. Or if Daniel Jones starts to falter throughout the season, we see Anthony Richardson comes in, he plays phenomenal, and he ultimately wins back the appreciation of the entire NFL and all their fan bases. So, yeah, those are the 2 ways I really see this situation going. And it all depends on Daniel Jones himself. But, yeah, I am hesitant about the situation, and we're going to cover the Colts in my record predictions this week. And you can see that even with Daniel Jones as a starter, I am happily surprised if they do good. But if you really listen to what I say, they're not going to do that good. So, yeah, I don't really think this helps or hinders them. It just more hurts the future of Anthony Richardson. So we'll talk about this in a little bit in hold-ins, but the Bengals are now apparently shopping Trey Hendrickson. Stay tuned. We will talk about that in a bit, but that is a fairly crazy story to me. Another smaller story coming out of training camps. Matthew Stafford is back at training camp and practicing. He had aggravated a disc in his back. So my question is, will his back be able to hold up throughout the long season? He's at the ripe age of what? I feel like he's 40. I could be wrong, but he's 37? Wow. Why do I feel like he's older? But yeah, he's 37 years old. That's pretty old for a quarterback. You only have like Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, and Russell Wilson up there with that. And both Rodgers and Wilson are starters. Wilson just barely. Rodgers because they have nobody else behind him. So, yeah. Ultimately, a back injury is not a good injury for a football player at that age in general, let alone a quarterback who has to use that entire back system to throw the football accurately. So, overall, this is slightly concerning. This is something that I'm going to be keeping my eye on because this majorly affects the Eagles because the Rams are arguably the top rival to the Eagles in the whole NFC as of right now. They're the team that was closest to beating them in the playoffs last year, and I feel like this is going to be the team that they're contending with for the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. Alright, so that was all like the news roundup there from around the league. Let's get into some of these record predictions. Now, I'm going to try not to ramble like I did last week, but I cannot promise anything if I get on a topic that I am so passionate about. All right? So we're going to start with the NFC South. Now, taking a look at the NFC South, there are a few teams that I could see being a playoff contender. Let's jump right into that then. So, let's go with the Buccaneers, who I have a ceiling of 11-6. And that's if everything goes right. If they can get on a streak of wins there against bad teams and upset a couple teams like the Lions, probably the Eagles and the Rams as well. And if they're able to beat all of their division rivals at least once, if not sweep two of them. 11-6 is not too insane. I believe that's where they ended last season as well. And it's hard for me to bet against Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, only because they've shown me that they are a high caliber and high quality team when it comes to both facing off against playoff contenders and also facing off against Super Bowl contenders as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if they come out firing and they're able to sweep like the Panthers and obviously the Saints. They split with the Falcons, so that's already 5 wins right there. They're able to upset maybe Eagles and like the Rams, and they beat bad teams like the Jets and Cardinals. Both of these teams, this team ultimately has a good shot at contending for a high seed, maybe the 3rd seed, the 4th seed. I don't really see them contending for the 1st seed unless they go above my ceiling. But ultimately, I do feel like the Buccaneers are going to be here and create some problems for some other playoff teams. I have a floor for them at 7-10. And yes, that's a wide range between 11-6 and 7-10. But hear me out. If they have another playoff contender team in their, or two in their division, i.e. the Falcons, i.e. the Panthers, they could split the series or get swept by one of those teams. They got swept by the Falcons last year, and they didn't even make the playoffs. So I could see, in reality, them splitting with the Panthers, them getting swept by the Falcons, and that would put them at 1-3 already. They play plenty of difficult teams. They play the Bills, they play the Lions, they play the Rams, they play the Eagles. And that's the ones that I can remember off the top of my head. Ultimately, I do feel like they will put some wins together against those teams, but if they start to lose, and there's a streak here where they go up against, the Patriots, who could be a solid team, who really knows, the Bills, the Rams, the Cardinals, all of which could be decent teams right there. They also have a stretch where they go against the Texans, Jets, Eagles, Seahawks, 49ers, and Lions. And I could see the Texans, Eagles, Seahawks, 49ers, and Lions all being playoff caliber teams. So it's not exactly a walk in the park, especially early on. But I do feel like they will find ways to win with Baker Mayfield and that receiving core of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Emeka Mbuka now. If they can stay healthy, that is a dangerous trio right there. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons, who have a ceiling of 7-10. Similar to the Buccaneers, I do believe that they will sweep a lot of their division. They might split with the Buccaneers. They're definitely going to sweep the Saints, and they might split with the Panthers themselves, putting them at a record of, 4-2 right there already. They do play a lot of hard teams. In a stretch here, they play the the Vikings, Panthers, Commanders, Bills, 49ers. That's a pretty rough stretch, and especially that back half of Commanders, Bills, 49ers. They also play a stretch where it's Buccaneers, Cardinals, Rams as well. But they also have easy stretches more easy stretches where it's Patriots, Colts, Panthers, Saints, Jets. And that's not as tricky as the stretch mentioned before. So ultimately, I do feel like that this team has the ability of being a playoff team. It really depends on how they're coached and how well Michael Penix Jr. can play at the quarterback position. If everything goes wrong, I could have them going 7-10. And that's if they start losing in some of these bigger playoff teams like the Commanders, Bills, 49ers, Buccaneers, if they get swept by the Bucs, if they lose to the Rams, if they get beat by the Panthers once or twice. Yeah, that's if everything goes wrong and if their wide receivers get injured again. I do feel like the teamwork of Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irvin, and Cade Otton can bail them out, but it has to be the receiving core to take them. Timeout. I just said the Bucs. My bad. I feel like the team of receiving core of Drake London, Kyle Pitts have to be at their top game, and that's only going to happen if Michael Penix Jr. can play at that high caliber level, and if they get the most out of Bijan Robinson. I do feel like Bijan will be the top running back in the league this coming year, ahead of Saquon. But yeah, I do feel like he might have like 1,500 yards on the ground, I feel like. But that's if everything goes right. They will get to that 10-7 record. If they start to lose to some good playoff contending teams, I could see them having a floor at 7-10. All right, going to the Panthers now. The Carolina Panthers, I was really high on them last year, and although I'm not as high on them this year, I have their ceiling pretty high. I have their ceiling at 9-8, and that's if they can sweep both the Saints, maybe the Falcons, and split with the Buccaneers. But they have some playoff caliber teams that they have to play during the regular season. They have the Jaguars, they have the Cowgirls, they have the Bills, they have the 49ers, the Rams, and obviously the Packers, and obviously the Buccaneers and the Falcons as well. If everything goes wrong, I could see them sitting at a record of 5-12, that being their floor. That's if they can't really pull off any upset wins against some playoff caliber teams, and if they drop a few to their division rivals as well. For the NFC South as a whole, this is going to be a common theme. It's very important to beat your division rivals. They are the ones that are going to help you bolster your record. They play a lot of different playoff teams that were in the playoffs last year, and they play a lot of different teams that could be in the playoffs this year as well. So it is fairly important for the Buccaneers, Falcons, and Panthers all to beat each other. So as long as they can do that, if they can maybe get a sweep of, well, the Saints are going to be easy. If they can get a sweep of one of their other rivals, not named the New Orleans Saints, I feel like they will be in the best shape possible. And that goes for any of those teams. If Bryce Young really proves to be a top-tier quarterback, I'm talking like top 15 plus. He's top 20 in my opinion. But if he can prove that he's like top 15, and Taratoa McMillan has a outstanding rookie season and is vying for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Chuba Hubbard stays healthy. This O-line improves, and the defense as a whole stays healthy and gets after the quarterback. I feel like this Panthers team can be a top-tier team in the NFL. All right, so we get to our final team within the NFC South, that being the New Orleans Saints. Oh boy. I'm not sure if I'm going to get hate for this, but for the entire offseason, I have been on the front of the bandwagon that the Saints will be the worst team in the NFL, period. And the record that I'm about to give them kind of shows it. All right? Because remember, they're already a bad team in a bad situation. Yes, they have a couple pieces, but they don't really have a quarterback. They have either Tyler Shuck, a rookie, or Spencer Rattler, who is not that good of a quarterback, let's be honest here. And that's your two best options. All right? So let's just keep that in mind, that quarterback does mean a lot in the NFL, especially when it comes to winning games. I have their ceiling at 2-15. All right? They play their own division, who will eat each other alive. I feel like they might get swept by their entire division. They play teams like the Broncos is preseason. My apologies. The Cardinals, the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Bills, the Bears, the Rams, the Jets. These are all teams that could vie for a playoff spot. And that's on top of playing the Bucks and the Panthers and the Falcons twice a year, obviously. I have their floor at 1-16. So it's their window. My window for them are very narrow. And I will stake my name on the fact that this team will be the worst in the NFL. People are saying the Browns, the Giants. No way. The people down in the Bayou are going to be miserable this season when it comes to football, all right? Just go watch LSU, okay, guys, in Louisiana. It's okay. Just go watch LSU. They might be a bit better. They're probably not going to be contending for a national title, but they're going to be fun to watch compared to the Saints. Again, it's just really a kind of a shitstorm brewing over in New Orleans. It's a first-year head coach who can't decide between two kind of bad quarterbacks, one being a rookie, with an aging 30-year-old running back who constantly gets injured, a wide receiver who's constantly in the hospital due to concussions, and who, if he takes one more giant hit, his career could be over, an offensive line that's held together like cheap plaster, a defense that is heralded by Cam Jordan, an aging vet, Justin Reed, who they picked up, who I'm surprised even signed there, but they signed him to a big contract. And that's really it. I mean, there's nothing else to really say about the Saints at this point. I will stake my claim that they will be the worst team in the NFL, and they will lose close to 15 to 16 games because of their record alone. So, yeah, that's the New Orleans Saints. They'll probably be contending for Arch Manning, too, but that's if he goes in this year's draft. So now let's switch over to the AFC. I'm going to try to keep this quicker because I kind of dragged out that last division there. So let's try to keep this quick. All right, let's go. The Jacksonville Jaguars. I have a ceiling for the Jaguars at 11-6 and a floor at 7-10. They play teams like the Panthers, Bengals, their own division, obviously, 49ers, Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, Cardinals, Jets, Broncos. All of these teams could put up a decent fight, and if they're not able to put some wins and upset a couple of these teams under a new head coach and under their star quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, I could see things going south and them being at 7-10 at the worst. But if they're able to pull off some wins against, let's say, the Texans, maybe pull off one against, like, the Rams, and maybe pull one off against, like, the Chargers, and sweep the Titans, and sweep the Colts, it puts them in a better position to aim for that ceiling. But, again, they're going to have to sweep some of their division rivals, and they're also going to have to upset some playoff caliber teams to help prove that maybe they could be a top team in the AFC this year. All right, next up we got the Houston Texans. I have the Texans with a ceiling of 10-7 and a floor of 6-11. Yes, that is below the Jaguars. They play a lot of playoff caliber teams. I mean, they play the Rams, Bucks. They play their own division. They play the Ravens, 49ers, Seahawks, Broncos, Bills, Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, Cardinals. All of these teams could be vying for a playoff spot in their own conferences. So if everything goes wrong and CJ Stroud can't find his rhythm again, that offensive line is absolutely horrendous too. And if he has nobody to throw to besides Nico Collins, and Joe Mixon doesn't come back early enough, we could see them falter early on and then never be able to find their rhythm. I mean, looking at this first stretch of these first, 5 games, they have Rams week 1, Bucks week 2, Jaguars week 3, Titans week 4, and Ravens week 5. If we don't, let's say we don't have Joe Mixon back for the first 5 weeks, and CJ Stroud's offensive line cannot hold it together, this is going to be a long stretch for this team. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be close games at all, but it's going to be a long stretch of teams that have a chance of really beating them. I could see them walking away with maybe 1 win out of this 5-game stretch, and that is not a good way to start 1-4, especially with the Jaguars having a little bit of a lighter schedule, especially earlier on. So overall, I do feel like the Texans need to find their footing early and fast and able to contend with their division rivals like the Jaguars, and also to contend in the AFC in general. I mean, again, this was a team a year ago people were proclaiming would be the team to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs and go to the Super Bowl. And now we just want to see them win some games, and hopefully they can do that and put together a solid offensive line and offensive showing. Their defense, I'm not too concerned about. Well coached by DeMeco Ryans down there, so I'm not too concerned. Hopefully the offense takes a step forward this season after taking a large step back last season. But until I see it, I feel like they might be closer to a 9-8 kind of record. But that is somewhere in their window right there between 10-7 and 6-11. So I actually have the Titans third in the division with a ceiling of 8-9, and this is if everything goes well. If Cam Ward really figures it out, finds his rhythm early, especially with Calvin Ridley and Tyler. I think Tyler Lockett's on that team now. I believe so. I'll maybe double check, but yeah, that's if he finds rhythm with his veteran wide receivers early, if his line's able to protect him for long enough to get the ball out, and that's if they're able to maybe sweep like the Colts and maybe find a way to split with like the Jaguars and Texans. I mean, that's a 4-2 record right there already. And it's not exactly like they have an easy record. They play teams like the Broncos, Rams, obviously their own division, the Cardinals, the Chargers, Seahawks, Chiefs, 49ers. But they play some easy teams like the Browns, like the Saints, like the Colts, obviously, who we'll talk about in a minute. Possibly the Patriots, depending on how they do during the season. But, yeah, if the Titans can put some things together, I could see them sitting at an 8-9 record, which is not a bad place to be, especially on Cam Ward's first year. But if everything goes wrong, I could see them having a floor of 3-14. This is only because they play a lot of playoff teams, a lot of playoff caliber teams, and not too many pushovers like the Colts, like the Browns, like the Saints. And that's not even taking into account if they split or if they sweep the Colts. That would be if they split with the Colts. If they swept the Colts during that, they would probably be 4-13. But I'm going worst case scenario right now. 3-14, not totally out of the question, especially for a team that just had the first overall pick. They wouldn't be the worst team in the NFL, and I don't think they would have the number one overall pick, but I feel like they would ultimately be close enough, like top 3, top 5. Lastly, we have the Colts, who, again, similar to the Saints, I am not very high on, mainly because they had 2 quarterbacks. Now, they did declare one of their quarterbacks as QB1, so that's the first step forward. I have their ceiling at 5-12. And that's if everything goes right. If they can maybe sweep the Titans, if they could find a way to maybe split with the Jaguars, since they tend to have Trevor Lawrence's number every once in a while. But this is a bad team that plays a lot of playoff caliber teams like the Broncos, Rams, their own division, Chargers, Steelers, Chiefs, who they were able to beat the Chiefs. I forget whether it was last year. It might have been last year. The Falcons, the Seahawks, the 49ers. But they also play teams that I think are going to be a little bit weak, like the Dolphins, like the Titans, like the Raiders. So if they can string some wins together here, they might be able to put something together. And yes, this is my prediction, especially after Daniel Jones got the QB1 start. I feel like he can win you games, but he can also lose you games as well. And if he loses you some games and you can't find ways to win against some of your division rivals and some of these other teams that you play, I could see the Colts sitting at a floor of 2-15. Ultimately being one of the worst teams in the NFL and being in the Arch Manning sweepstakes as well. So there's not much to really say about the Colts. If they can find a rhythm between Daniel Jones and Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Jaden Downs, and if Jonathan Taylor can find his footing from years past, I feel like that this could be a solid offense. This defense gives me concern. But if this offense can overcome that, then I am not overly scared about what this team can do. All right, so going over it, in the NFC South, I have the Buccaneers finishing first, followed by the Falcons at second, followed by the Panthers at third, and obviously the Saints in fourth. In the AFC South, I have the Jaguars finishing in first, Texans finishing in second, Titans finishing in third, and Colts finishing in fourth. Let me know what you all think of that. Please leave a comment down below. That would be much appreciated, whatever you think of my rankings. Even last week, if you want to go back and do that as well. But, yeah, I'll stake my claim that the Saints and Colts will ultimately probably be 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. All right, back into hold-ins and holdouts. Cowboys, I'll leave Michael Parsons for Big Trouble in Big D. Terry McLaurin is apparently working close to a deal, possibly. I highly doubt this, but ultimately I do feel like Terry McLaurin will turn the corner and ultimately sign with the Commanders, probably for around $29.5 to maybe $30 million guaranteed per year. So, yeah, that's kind of where I am with Terry McLaurin. I wouldn't be surprised if he signs tomorrow and it happens out of the blue. So the big news, and we alluded to it earlier this episode, is Bengals superstar edge rusher Trey Hendrickson apparently is getting shopped around by the Bengals. The Bengals asking price is around either 2 firsts and a third, or a first and 2 starters. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I felt like Trey Hendrickson's move to come back to training camp in order to bridge the gap a little bit would help. But it just seems like they're stuck on the guaranteed money. It's not even the years. It seems like they both agree that they want maybe a 3-year contract. But the guaranteed money it seems that that's where the 2 teams are kind of getting stuck at. And ultimately, it seems like Trey Hendrickson might be traded by week 1 or week 2, and we could see him suiting up for like a team maybe like the Packers, maybe like the Lions. But would those teams be willing to give up that much compensation for a 30-year-old edge rusher who they could wait maybe a season and maybe pick up off of free agency for like 2 years, 3 years, and give him the money that he deserves? All right, lastly, we're going to go down to Big Trouble in Big D. So we have some updates on the Micah Parsons and Cowboys contract situation. Many insiders believe that Micah and the Cowboys are heading towards a quote-unquote divorce. What this probably means is that there's a higher chance that he could sit out for a longer period of time at the start of the season. That's not to say that he's going to get traded, and hell, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets signed a little bit before the first game, and they kind of just plan this out for publicity. But it also shows that this is also probably the case because not many teams are calling Dallas because they believe that Michael will ultimately re-sign with the Cowboys at some point. Though many teams say that they have quote-unquote massive trade packages to get Micah, which some teams that were listed by insider Adam Schefter, being teams like the Packers, the Patriots, the Steelers, and the Lions, all of which are looking to make a possible, well, in the Patriots' case, a playoff push. In the Packers, Steelers, and Lions' case, a Super Bowl push. And bringing in a guy like Micah Parsons and then signing him to a long-term deal opens up that window a bit more. I mean, let's go over the cases. For the Packers, they don't really have an edge rusher. They have Lucas Van Ness, who really hasn't panned out over the past 2-3 seasons. So bringing in a star edge rusher would help solidify that defensive line that the Packers have up there in Lambeau. Patriots are constantly have the most cap room. Let's start with that. So they have the money to pay Micah now. But they're also looking to build something there. They're looking to build a playoff caliber team behind their rookie quarterback. Well, not rookie, but like sophomore quarterback who is still on his rookie deal. So now is the time to go all in and try to win. The Steelers, again, are looking to make a Super Bowl push this season, and Micah would help level up their defensive line. I mean, hell, you would have Micah Parsons, T.J. Watt, and Cam Hayward on the same defensive line. All right, and they would probably bring in Micah Parsons to kind of inherit T.J. Watt's role on the team. And lastly, the Lions have constantly been linked to edge rushers like Trey Hendrickson, so I don't think it's completely crazy to believe that they would take a swing on trying to get Micah and put him across from Aiden Hutchinson. You would have two generational edge rushers. Let me put this into perspective. Not many teams have two generational tackles or two good offensive tackles, let alone two generational edge rushers. So that would be completely, insane, and that would level them up, in my opinion, to Super Bowl contender. Although they're right outside, and I feel like they're in playoff contender, Super Bowl contenders are like the Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Bills. I feel like that would project the Lions into that top tier of teams. So, yeah, at the end of the day, Micah is probably not going to get traded. And by week 1, I'll be sitting here saying, I told you so. He will ultimately get drafted somewhere else. But, not drafted. He'll ultimately sign with the Cowboys and go play against another team. But until I see the contract and see the notification that he signed, I'm just going to assume that they are secretly shopping him around and just nobody's given them the biggest offer yet. Alright, so that's it for this episode. I want to thank you guys for staying around, and hopefully you guys are getting used to these longer episodes again, because this is what's going to be coming back once week 1 hits. So, with all that being said, I want to thank you guys again. Please leave a like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter for any updates, or X, whatever you want to call it, for any updates possible. But that's been this episode. And I've been Matt, I've been your host, and I want to thank you guys for listening in. And remember, go Birds!